Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program 2. In today's episode we are going to push the next boundaries and set our sight on Minmus. First we're going to need to send a probe there because I'd like to map it since we have the orbital survey mod. I think having a map of Minmus will be great because we're going to be sending a Kerbal there soon enough. And this is going to be our first time visiting Minmus in the sequel, so I'm excited to see how the planet looks and what it sounds like. So here we are at the KSC. We are going to start off by checking mission control and seeing what kind of missions they have for us. So under our primary, that's our mission to orbit with a probe and a communications antenna around Minmus, which is what we're going to do today. We also have these secondary ones to escape the gravitational pull of Kerbin's SOI, and this one which is to orbit Kerbin with a probe core, and we'll be able to do all of those in the single launch. This one we've already we haven't tracked it yet, but this is to launch a rover, and I'm excited to do that, but I think we're going to hold off on doing this for a little bit. We're going to go ahead and track it because there's no penalties. It doesn't seem like there's a limit to how many missions you can track. So we're going to go ahead and track all of those, but we're going to only work on the 3. So yeah, so we get the we get the point there, so we're just close that out. We're coming into the R&D station. We've already unlocked all of Tier 1 science, so we're going to go ahead and check out what's available in Tier 2. We've got 671 points, so we could probably get quite a bit. First thing I look at is the precision aerodynamics. It's got some interesting points. I don't know how much of this is necessary at the moment. The reaction wheel is kind of nice, but the expanded construction is good, but it's mostly the multi-stage, or the ability to have multiple engines that would be good. But here I'm going to go for a smaller probe core and some solar panels because we're going to be launching probes. Precision propulsion is good for small probes, but I don't think I'm going to go for it right now. Atmospheric science is going to be good, especially when we start working with planes, because it has atmospheric science. And so we'll be able to get more around Kerbin, and that'll be fun. I'm actually looking forward to flying planes in this. I think we'll take a day and do that. This is actually really good. Durable power systems, because it comes with, not only does it come with a reaction wheel and an antenna and extra batteries, but deployable solar panels, which means that we'll be able to bring our solar panels back through re-entry. We still have some science to spend, but I don't have enough to buy anything else, so we're just going to go on and move to the VAB and start working on our project. So we can't use any of those command pods because we're going to be making a probe. And as far as probes go, we actually have quite a few options here. Quite a few different sizes, shapes. It's kind of hard to tell which one is what I'm going to want for this mission. But I go ahead and go with the Octo 2 because it is just simply the smallest. I really enjoy making small, compact probes. So we're going to put on this survey scanner, and this is going to, once we have it in a polar orbit, it's going to be able to map out the celestial body, so we'll be able to use that map and kind of have a better idea of what we want to do when we actually send Kerbals down to the surface. So we're going to load this up with a bunch of batteries. I'm not really paying attention to how many, I'm just kind of eyeballing it. But we're going to put 4 solar panels on there. Still getting used to the controls a little bit. Alright, so we're also adding some extra batteries on there because we don't want to run out of juice here, and I don't have something like Ampere to calculate all the different math to tell you if you have enough power to survive the dark side of your orbit. So we're just going to kind of wing it. Alright, so we've got the basics of our satellite here. Communication dishes, large enough to reach. We're going to put a reaction wheel in here. It looks a little strange, but you know, it's okay to have it. It's not going to interfere. we're going to kind of do this little strange design with our satellite. This isn't something we normally do, but I was having kind of a little bit of fun with it in KSP2. I like the building aspect. It's a little different to get used to. So I go ahead and check our trip planner, and we definitely have enough delta V to make it from low Kerbin orbit to Minmus and circularize with it. We're going to put some struts here to kind of just make sure everything is connected in place. And that is our probe. Put a decoupler there, and we're going to start loading it up with the launch vehicle to bring it into low Kerbin orbit and potentially farther. So we're going to throw an adapter on there and move up to the mid-sized tank for our launch vehicle. And with a thrust to weight ratio of 2.43, we're not really going to need to have anything else, any kind of side boosters or anything. We have 3,736 delta V, so this is essentially going to be an SSTO. And if you're not familiar with that, that is a single stage to orbit. So all we need to do is launch this thing in a relatively efficient manner, have a gravity turn to it, and we'll be able to make it to orbit in just this rocket alone. So we're going to go ahead and save these under the Minmus series. And checking out our colors. Going to change the bottom tanks around a little bit. I playing around with this color tool has been kind of fun. Yeah, we're going to do a little black and red scheme for that. Okay, so here we are on the launch pad. We are going to leave some footage and skip some footage. We've made it to orbit several times, so we're going to kind of show the takeoff, but we're going to skip ahead until we're at orbit. We're going to make our maneuvers to reach Minmus, and then once we get to Minmus, we're going to start leaving things unedited. Anyways, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's just get in the air at first. And with that, we take off. Glorious takeoff with a healthy thrust of over 2. So we are moving pretty quickly. We don't have to worry too much about our surface speed. We are probably already past 100 meters per second now. We're going to wait a couple more seconds before starting our gravity turn, though. Just going to take a moment to admire this rocket, admire the landscapes below, the lighting on all of it. And our gravity turn is beginning as the stars are coming into view. Glorious. The rocket plume is expanding as we get higher into, or as we get into lower atmosphere, higher altitude. We have a little bit of a heating effect on our survey scanner, which is not good. That's the whole point of this mission. So we throttle down just slightly, and that keeps our dish from overheating too much. Kind of stabilize out our trajectory, point more horizontal, and then we kick off our engine. And we're going to coast until we get to our apoapsis. So let's go ahead and skip ahead a little bit. And now we are getting ready to make our circularization burn. The roar of the engine is just so good. This game is great to play with headphones on. And with that, we are circularized. That little chime that you heard is the mission to get into orbit around Kerbin with a probe has been satisfied. So that's nice. That's going to be science in the bag. So let's go ahead and extend out all the pieces to our probe. Communication antennas, the solar panels. We turn on the orbital survey for a second just to kind of look at all we can see with it, but we're going to turn it back off for now. There's no need to have it spending power and not be able to do anything. No new science to be had, so we're going to just go ahead and work on our transfer stage to Minmus. And if you're familiar with the Kerbal, Kerbal 1 or Kerbal 2, just any of the Kerbal series, in order to get to Minmus, you're going to need to have an inclination change. Here I have a little bit of a bug. It's not showing me the planets or the orbit, so I'm going to go ahead and go to the tracking station and then go to mission control. We're going to grab the reward for the Lonely Satellite contract, which is nice, just a bit of science, but it all helps. And then that's all we can really do for now, so then we're going to go back to our craft, and then hopefully we'll be able to access the map normally. By the way, if you notice that screen over there on the far right where it shows the rocket, that screen changes all the time, so it's kind of fun to see what it shows each time you come to the track or the mission control. Alright, so back with the rocket. We can now highlight Minmus, so that bug was taken care of. Sometimes just either reloading a save or going to mission control, sometimes even turning off the game, coming back, can fix things. So, not bad. Okay, so here we are making a maneuver at our descending node, and we are just raising our, I believe that's normal direction, until the ascending node and the descending node are roughly at 0. But we can't get it to 0, so we're going to get 0.1 and -1, so that'll be close enough. We're going to go ahead and plot our maneuver into K2D2 and let that take over. Got a nice little reflection of the sunlight off the probe core. That's very nice. And now that we're facing our maneuver, K2D2 automatically time warps closer to the maneuver and slows it down before. And it's not very much of a burn, just a quick little puff of the engine, and that is enough to stabilize, or so I thought. No, it was because we had to stage midway through there, and K2D2 doesn't like to stage. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of this maneuver. Because we kind of messed up the timing on that and the angle that we were at, we're no longer facing the maneuver angle. So we're going to go ahead and create a maneuver node over here at the ascending node on the other side. We're going to burn anti-normal. Oh, yeah, so it was normal that we were going last time. But anyways, we're going to burn anti-normal, get our maneuver plotted out, and once again, we're going to try to change our inclination. So there we go. We're now running on the Terrier engine. Super efficient in a vacuum, and once again, doesn't take too much to change the inclination. Alright, so now we are on the same orbital plane as Minmus, so now we can create a maneuver node and attempt to intercept it in the same way that we tried to do the MUN, where if the planet, or if the moon is at the 12 o'clock position, we make our maneuver at the 3 o'clock position. So I didn't exactly put it at the 3 o'clock position. It's more kind of like the 2-ish 245-ish mark. So that's why I'm having a little bit of a difficulty with my intercept. But by adjusting when I make my burn, making it a little bit sooner, I have a much cleaner intercept there. So if we see up top at the Minmus, we have our orbital line now intercepts where Minmus will be at the same time that we will be there. Let's go ahead and focus on that and see what we're working with. So we're going to add a little normal to our burn, and that brings our periapsis very low, which is good for a lander, but we're trying to create an orbital survey. So we're going to end up doing a mid-course correction anyways, so let's just go ahead and plot this in and execute this maneuver. And we're going to switch into the map mode because it's a little bit easier to track the progress of our maneuver this way. We're using K2D2 to handle the maneuver, and of course it can only do so much, so its accuracy is not always guaranteed. So when I go ahead and come out of time warp and exit that, you can see our maneuver is no longer going to intercept Minmus. So we're going to do some adjustments manually, burn retrograde until we intercept Minmus into a ballistic trajectory. We're definitely going to hit it. So in our mid-course correction, we're going to add a little bit of a normal to our burn and bring ourselves up into a polar orbit. So I get myself an apoapsis, or a periapsis, excuse me, of 200 some odd kilometers. And I plotted it into K2D2, so it's going to go ahead and take over and handle the burn. There we go. Midway between Kerbin and Minmus. Actually, kind of like a third of the way, really. But we just ignite our engines for just a second, and that's enough to change our trajectory entirely. It's amazing how big of a difference such a small maneuver can make over time. The things you learn when you play this. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and point prograde. We're going to try to adjust this this altitude a little bit. Prograde was the wrong direction, so we're flipping retrograde. But that's also the wrong direction. How can prograde and retrograde be the wrong direction? Well, the answer to that is neither of those directions are the ones that I should have been facing. I should have been facing anti-normal. But I figured that out eventually and plot in another maneuver. We're going to have to make a few minor course corrections, but that should be okay. We have plenty of communication power. We shouldn't lose signal with Kerbin unless we go behind. And there we go. A burn so small you barely see it. And with that, we have made it into Minmus Sphere of Influence. Now, this probe doesn't have any science experiments on it. We could have put something on here, but this wasn't really what its goal was. The goal for this one is solely to get us a map and to satisfy the mission to orbit. But you know, in hindsight, maybe a science junior would have been nice. So I am misremembering the altitude of that the orbital survey would work best at. I am remembering the correct altitude for the Mun. However, Minmus is a whole different celestial body entirely. So as such, it's going to require different altitudes for optimal mapping. So let's go ahead and circularize here at 300 kilometers, even though I need to be at about 170, I believe it was. Somewhere around there. But we're going to take some time. We're going to just at least get circularized, and then we're going to focus on getting ourselves into the correct position so that way we can map. But that little chime you heard is us satisfying the contract to orbit Minmus with a communication device. There we go. We have orbit. It's very interesting how quickly this game kind of pushes you forward. So as you see here, our scanner is not going to be able to work because it says that it's below a minimum altitude. But as soon as we turn it on, it changes its tune and says that we're too far above. So I'm going to create a maneuver plan to adjust my altitude. This time I once again misread and I aim for a 200 some odd altitude because that was our max allowed, but not the ideal altitude. So give me a second. I'm going to circularize at the wrong altitude and I'm going to have to plan it in again, and we'll get this right because that's what we want to do. So here we are. We did all that. I just went ahead and cut ahead, and we are now at the ideal altitude, 170 kilometers. We don't necessarily need to point at the surface for it to run. It can just run. So now we got it going. Let's go ahead and bring up the orbital survey mod menu. And here you can see the little map of Minmus. A little black and white, but Minmus nonetheless. Let's go ahead and focus on the planet so that way when we time warp, our camera isn't just spinning around. And let's go ahead and time warp, and as you see on the map, that little green dot is the orbit of our probe, and it is just taking pictures and discovering all that we can see as it goes along. Let's go ahead and skip ahead a little bit because it does take a while. I really like watching the map slowly uncover. It's very satisfying. But there we go. Once you reach like 96, 97% of the map, it just auto-completes the rest of it. And so we have now successfully mapped every inch of Minmus, and we will now be able to use that to our advantage and plan our landings. So, deciding what to do next, I realize I still have a ton of Delta V. Like, absolutely way too much Delta V. We could make an attempt at a landing. You know, it's just a probe. It's not going to give us much. We don't have any science, so we can't do anything. But, I mean, why not? We're here, right? Let's just see what this planet looks like. Planet. The moon is not a planet. It's a star. I need to get that right. Okay, so periapsis, we're going to bring that down. I don't like landing with such an oval, elliptical orbit. I just feel like you come in with too much speed. But we have plenty of Delta V left into this stage. We can just kind of brute force our way to it. So K2D2 throttles back the time warp, and right before we need to burn, releases us back into regular time. We get this nice 3 little beeps to let us know it's time to burn. And the 3 little beeps are in stock KSP2. That's not part of a mod. It's really handy. It's been really nice being able to have cinematic shots of things and still be able to make our burns. So here we are back at the mission control. We successfully completed our primary objective. We get a bunch of science for that. And then that will unlock the next step in the story mode. And that is something we're going to work on the next episode. But currently, we are going to attempt to land on this thing. Especially since the next mission for Minmus isn't actually to land on it. It's to discover a particular location. It is to land on it, but it's to land on it in a very particular location. So we won't be achieving any missions by landing here today, but we'll achieve it in our hearts. We'll know that we've taken that step forward, and we can do it with a probe first, which means that when we go to land on it for real, we'll be doing it with a Kerbal. So I kind of talked through it, but I plotted in an extremely brutal landing maneuver. I basically just took all the horizontal velocity of our craft and canceled it all out. Added a little bit of radial to it, to get ourselves into a slightly different place, but for the most part, this thing is just going to come to a dead stop. And we can do it. That lower stage that we had enough Delta V that can handle this entire maneuver on its own and still have some left over. Like, when I said that, I just eyeballed it and over-engineered it, and I really did. But yeah, so we're going to use this second stage, this lower stage, as our descent stage. And if we have enough Delta V to land with it, then we're going to try to land with it. Here we go. I just wanted a little bit of a flatter area, and it looked like that little spot just to the side of me was a little flatter. So that's why I decided to throw in a little bit of the radial momentum. So we're not coming down directly straight up and down, but we're still coming down pretty softly. Really happy with the color scheme I chose. I like this kind of gunmetal gray and bumblebee yellow. There we go. We're going to point ourselves retrograde. We're going to get ourselves ready for our descent. And this is when the soundtrack kicks in. So I'm gonna go. I'll let you enjoy this as I did. And the music slowly fades out as we get closer to the surface. I do wish it wouldn't do that. I wish it would come to its climax right as you landed. Because there's still time to fail right now. I can still screw this up. And it just feels like the epicness is bottle corked a little bit towards the end. Nonetheless, we come and make a safe touchdown on Minmus. For some reason, it's standing upright, kind of leaning a little bit, but it's not. It's the deciding not to fall over, so I'm not going to argue. We don't have any science to do. We didn't have any mission to complete. There's, on paper, there's no reason why we should be doing this right now. But why not? I mean, it's Kerbal. Why not push the boundaries and land somewhere that you'd never expected just because you had way too much Delta V? I mean, come on. So anyways, let's just get out of here. We're going to satisfy one final contract, and that is to escape Kerbin's sphere of influence. So we're just going to point straight up and see how far we go. And it turns out it doesn't actually take very much to leave Kerbin's sphere of influence. So we can go ahead and kill our throttle and just let this float into its fate, forever destined to orbit the sun. As we time warp, we say goodbye to Minmus, only for now. In the next episode, we'll see her again. This game's so peaceful. Yeah. This game and its predecessor is just, there's something so peaceful about piloting a craft through space. Which is ironic because space is probably one of the most dangerous places you could ever be. But yeah, here we are. We're getting ready to exit. We're gonna just time warp our way into the sphere of influence of Kerbal. And our mission control person sounds very unenthused about it. I think they're just kind of tired. They're like ready to go home. It's been a long mission. It's been a long week. It takes like a week to get to Minmus, so they've been at this for a little while. So we don't have enough fuel left to really make any kind of encounter. But I love this noise. Yeah, so good. Such a great noise. But yeah, we don't have enough fuel left to do anything meaningful with this thing, so we're just going to let it sit and enjoy itself. We'll probably delete it later, but that's for later. But in the next episode, we are, like I mentioned before, we're going to turn our sights on Minmus, at the Minmus Monument in particular, as that is our next mission. I'm really excited to see where the story takes us and what they've got in store with the rest of the celestial bodies. But anyways, that's where I'm going to leave today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're looking forward for more KSP2. If you did, please consider giving me a like, drop me a comment, let me know your thoughts, and I will see y'all in the next one. Take care.